Hello and welcome back to the BNI Southeast Tennessee podcast. My name is Michael Crosa, wishing you a very happy Labor Day. And I am here with Elaine Zambos, Director of BNI Southeast Tennessee.
Yes.
Yeah. Elaine, what are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about hard conversations, how to have those hard conversations.
All right. This episode of the BNI Southeast Tennessee podcast is brought to you by Webive Digital Marketing. Do you need more sales and calls? I know you do. So Anton, Donnie, and America at Webive are the experts in local SEO, Google Business Optimization, and web design. An ideal referral for them would be a business owner who wants to take their online visibility up to the next level. So be sure to check the link in the show notes below or just go over to webive.com to see how they can help. Okay, Elaine. We're here to talk about hard conversations. Where do you even start with that kind of thing?
Well, we all have had those situations where the elephant's in the room. Mm-hmm. And we've got to talk about it.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to talk about it because most people do not like conflict. They don't know how to deal with conflict. And we just get defensive.
Yeah.
Because if I ask you, why is this elephant in the room? You're going to get defensive, right? And then it's just going to explode and it's going to be a horrible situation. So we have to figure out a way to have that conversation without getting that emotional and get those defenses going, because when that happens, there's not a good outcome.
Right.
So I think first step, and I know you've had a lot of training and with hard conversations.
Fun fact about me is that I used to be a crisis case manager at University of Texas, Austin. So I was working with students in a lot of their kind of hardest moments of life. And a lot of times people make the joke like, oh, what, they couldn't figure out their major? It's like, no, I mean, college students are real people too, right? Parents die. Their siblings die. Their apartment burns down. Like, there are real life crises that are happening. So definitely have my fair share of hard conversations as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so, the first thing we have to do, obviously, is take the emotion out of it. And interestingly, I've had several hard conversations this week, which is not, we all have them, but not all at the same time, right? And so in one of the situations, my core values were being compromised. Mm-hmm. And I had to have that conversation. Because I live with some boundaries and that wasn't cool. Mm-hmm. And so I had to, how do I have this conversation with somebody that our core values just are not lining up, but yet keep it emotionless, right? And keeping it professional and not getting personal. And so I had to think about it for a minute, right? I had to process. And then I had to work through my mind and take the emotion out and think about, what do I really want the outcome to be by having this? And the other part about having those hard conversations is it is about the outcome, but it's not about being right.
I like that. It's about the outcome, but it's not about being right.
No, because so many times people think they just have to be right.
Yeah.
And being right isn't always the right thing. Right. This is not the right thing.
Well, and that kind of reminds me of the head trash episode, because if you have head trash that is dictating what you think is right in a situation, you might not even realize that that's being colored in a way that's not really in alignment.
Right.
Yeah.
And so as I'm having a hard conversation, a lot of times, how I started this conversation was, hey, just so you know, this doesn't settle well with me because it's not in alignment with my core values. Mm-hmm. How do you think we should move forward so that we're both feeling good about this situation? And and so what happens is the other person gets involved going, well, wait a minute, we could do this, or this. Right. And so then we get into alignment.
Right. And being able to present it that way, I don't know the specific situation, but that other person may not have even realized that their actions came off a certain way or meant a certain thing to somebody else. And, you might realize that you actually do have the same core values. And now it's a productive, positive conversation that actually brings you closer together.
It really did.
Yeah.
It really did, because when I said it was my core values, and that's one of the things I love about BNI is we have a set of core values, and we talk about them every single week. And I always say that anytime I'm feeling icky about something, if I stop and really think about it, I'm feeling icky because it's not in alignment with my core values.
Yeah.
And so this situation, I was feeling really icky, and I had to step back and go, why does this make me so icky? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's not in alignment with how I feel or how I believe or how I want to present myself or how I want to be affiliated with something.
Right.
Right. And so I just, addressed the person and said, I really probably need to step away from this situation because it's not in alignment with my core values.
Right.
They're like, no. We want you to be a part of this, right?
Right.
Okay, then how do you suggest that we do that?
Yeah.
And then that person figured it out. And and that's all I want. Yeah, I wanted to be a part of the group, but not under that situation.
Right. Well, and I like that because talking about like it's about the outcome, the outcome that you want is for everybody to feel good and right and within integrity of their values. Mm-hmm. It's not about proving that your value was broken or that yours is better than theirs or anything like that, right? It's about that outcome of coming together.
Right.
Yeah.
And even on like a personal level, I realized that every once in a while, and this is being very personal, so Tim, I'm going to apologize up front.
Hi, Tim.
But I was in a situation where I felt like I was just constantly aggravating him. Like I was like, what am I doing? So I stepped back, I'm like, what behavior, what is going on here? And this is me talking to myself, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So, I'm like, instead of saying, dude, why are you getting so upset? Mm-hmm. I said, hey, I'm curious, what behaviors am I displaying that's triggering this reaction? Because whatever it is, I want to stop doing it.
Yeah. Because
the outcome I wanted was not to aggravate, right? Or have that, right? And so he was like, wow. And then he realized, he's like, gosh, when I get tired, I get short-tempered. And he's like, thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he didn't even realize it, right?
Right.
And so, but if I would have went at it as, hey, what the heck, dude?
Right.
Chill out. What, you're getting mad over,
right.
Yeah.
Well, and I like what you just said there because you talked about the difference of behavior. Like this is observable behavior that's happening. And I think so often we go to assigning meaning. We say like, oh, well, you're getting mad because you think you're better than me.
Right.
Or, it may not be like that literal language, but like something that kind of means that. And that's the part that we don't know. And that's the part that gets the emotions up.
Right.
That's what gets people on edge and defensive when we can all recognize that, maybe a certain sentence or phrase was said that doesn't feel good or, whatever the case is. I like that a lot. And I think about the contexts in which hard conversations come up. Let's just say, for example, you have to confront an employee about something they, said to a client, right? You got a call from the client, hey, this employee said this crazy thing, and okay, let me talk to him. So you go to the employee, and I think in that example, a very common reaction is to assume that this is going to be a tough confrontation. Right. It's going to be a hard conversation, and you said this thing to the client, and so then as the boss, I'm getting
you're pumped up,
right? I'm getting pumped up, and now I'm getting defensive, and by the time I get to you, you don't even know what. Yeah, I'm making you my employee in the situation, right? You don't even know. You don't know what I'm coming in about. Just that I'm defensive and adversarial, and I say, why did you say this to the client? Before anything even started, that's an adversarial situation. As opposed to if I can take a deep breath and just say the facts. Mm-hmm. Hey, I got this call from this client. As the employee, you probably remember, yeah, I said that. This is a fact or, whatever. Here's the bigger context. I think that a lot of times that can that could just help those conversations go on if we don't assume that it's going to be a fight, if we don't assume that it's a conflict.
And another great nugget to use in that situation is, let's say, using that example that, one of your employees said something to a client that was just not right. Yeah. And they called you on it, right? And they said, hey, this happened. So another great way to diffuse that is after you've calmed down, right?
Right.
Go to them and say, hey, Michael, if one of our clients said something about you, would you want me to tell you? Yeah. And then you can just say, hey, when client XYZ called, they said this, and I'm sure that that's not what you meant, right?
Right.
And they're like, oh my gosh, no, I didn't mean that at all. Right. And then they could figure out a better way to do it. Or they might say, no, I really did mean that.
Right.
Okay, well, then that's a different conversation. Yeah. Right?
Or I did mean that, and here's the elephant in the room that they didn't present.
Right. Like not all the information was presented.
Okay, this is a good conversation, and I think we're going into a part 2. So why don't we cap it right there and come back next week to finish this conversation.
Oh, so we're having a difficult conversation about you wanting me to shut up. Got it.
This episode of the BNI Southeast Tennessee podcast is brought to you in honor of the National Medal of Honor Heritage Center, a BNI member nonprofit organization right here in the heart of downtown Chattanooga. The center is a local museum dedicated to the history of the Medal of Honor and Chattanooga's rich history, from the first medals in 1863 to the latest medals. They tell the stories of courage in the face of danger demonstrated by the recipients and educate future generations on the character values associated with the Medal of Honor: patriotism, citizenship, courage, integrity, sacrifice, and commitment. A good referral for the Heritage Center would be businesses and organizations who wish to help honor the legacy of the Medal of Honor and military service. Find out more at the links below or at mohhc.org. All right, well, this has been a great episode of the BNI Southeast Tennessee podcast. Elaine, thank you so much. We are coming to you from Wavelength Space in beautiful downtown Chattanooga. The set behind us is made by Mad Honey Rentals. I want to say thank you to these two partners. We hope that you will listen, subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, all the things and stuff. Tell your chapter about it. And of course, you can count these as CEUs. And we'll see you next time on the BNI Southeast Tennessee podcast. But first...
A dad joke.
A dad joke. Elaine, where do you go to learn how to make ice cream?
Where do you go to learn how to make ice cream?
Sunday school. All right. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week.